Starfleet Relay Station 42. This is Relay Station 6. I have an important message. It's for Captain Pike of the Enterprise. Tell him it's from Lon.
What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, I tell you what, it is the brand new season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That's season 2, and I am blown away and excited. But then again, I'm always blown away and excited. But no, this is an excellent episode. This is an excellent show, and a lot of the reviews that have come out from some of the reviewers who got some early screenings of the first couple episodes have kind of met that out, and I am really thrilled for everything that the show is doing. So let's jump right in. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the episode starts with this really amazing, it's this awesome looking shuttle dive that happens, and of course, remember, there's no up or down in space, so it's really awesome to see the shuttle sort of moving and flying through, and then eventually coming back up. I genuinely enjoyed it, and of course, you see, we come to Pike's office, or his, I don't want to say ready room, but it's something along those lines, and he's talking to Una, and she's obviously able to communicate with him, probably a monitored channel or whatever, as they discuss sort of her situation. And because, hello, those of you who have not, where have you been? Go watch season 1. The end of last season, Una was arrested. Not just arrested by Pike's girlfriend. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay. And why? Because she lied about being genetically modified. And so it's one of those moments where she's like, look, it's my life, it's this and that. And he's like, look, you're one of the best commanders. I'm not going to let this go. And so she is determined to not see him harm himself or put himself in jeopardy. But at the same time, this is number one, man. This is his number one. And he's like, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you out there hanging. The same way he had said before. You remember when in the original's first season, when they discovered she was Illyrian, they were like, yeah, no, she's like, what happens if Starfleet finds out? And he's like, well, I'll deal with that when the time comes. Welcome to the time. You're there. It's one of those moments where I like seeing Pike's character. And of course, he does start the episode with his captain's log, and then we don't see him again. Because pretty much Pike takes shore leave. He has a thing he has to go do. I guess where they start really heavily implying that there's some kind of situation brewing or rising up or whatever. Later, at the end of the episode, you find out what it is, and I won't. Spoilers, I guess. But again, why are you watching the show if you don't want spoilers? So Pike makes Lieutenant Spock he makes him the acting captain. He tells him, he goes, you can be acting captain for 3 days. Don't break anything. You're good. Just you're here because they're at the Starbase 1. They're at the one right there, or space dock, their version of it, and with the one with all the little biosphere dome things. The one where they did negotiating with that one species last season. You know what I'm talking about. And it's real. So like the Enterprise is all like latched up and there and hooked up to it, and you're like, all right, well they're doing inspections and various things and whatnot. So then we go to Spock is in sickbay, and in sickbay, he's dealing with a lot of, apparently, Mbenga describes it in really super technical terms, and then it comes out basically he's dealing with stress. Brother's stressed, man, and he's just been given command of the ship, and I guess he's also dealing with some other stuff emotionally, because as soon as Chapel walks in, his heart rate jumps up, and so it's great. And Mbenga's not stupid. He's not stupid. He knows what time it is, and so that's what they have to deal with. He's like, look, you clearly have some stuff to sort out, and he's like, let me help you. And so what he does is he brings this is, by the way, this is all right before that. I'm sorry, I'm all over the road. It's first episode back, and he walks back and he comes up with the lute, one of the things, but it's the stringed instrument that Spock's known for playing. So of course, we get our first what I call a solo moment. Those of you familiar with Star Wars Solo story, the movie decided it was necessary to give us every single origin of every single thing that Han Solo had. Show us where he got his vest, show us where he got his gun, show us where he met Chewie. It was all this stuff. Same thing. So I don't have a problem with that. Akiva Goldsman's already said they're going to lean very heavily into a lot of the things that worked, and so kind of seeing some of the early days of some things. One of the things I think is very important to point out at this point, Spock is still pre-TOS Spock. What does that mean? So there's an article that came out from Den of Nerds or something along those lines about a month ago, and it talked about how, and Akiva Goldsman was interviewed, and one of the things he said was that they live in the space between why Spock was chummy, happy, and smiley in the original pilot, that's The Cage, versus Spock, who we eventually see. Now, obviously, we know out of universe, the reason was that Majel Barrett was originally supposed to play the part of number one, Una Riley right now, and she was going to be the more stoic, logical, straightforward type of person. Exactly who they've built Rebecca Romijn to be. And so then when it switched out and the NBC the network didn't want a female first officer, and then we ended up getting Spock, then they convert a lot of those things to him. Now, in universe, we know for a fact that Spock hasn't fully undergone the purging of his Vulcan emotions yet, or his human-ish emotions. He had training for it, which had locked certain things away. But then Mbenga points out that at the end of last season, when he fought to protect, he unleashed something in himself, and as a result, he's been struggling and wrestling with that this entire time. Now he's in command. Super stressful situation to put him in, but what else do you expect is going to happen? But anyway, so yeah, it's interesting. We finally get a view of when we get on the bridge, you get this really amazing shot of Uhura, and she's an ensign, she's communications, that's her area, and this one inspector guy is like, oh, I'm going to have to reboot the system, and she's like, that's going to put everything, like, she's like, that's going to put us all in danger. He's like, we're here, we're in shuttle, this and that, what are you talking about? She's like, let me set up a second comm band, blah, blah, blah. That's where they end up receiving the message from Lon. Turns out Lon is hanging out at a communal space. I call it a communal space, but it's a disputed planet between the Federation and the Klingons it's a dilithium mining planet. So what they do is the Federation and the Klingons, they swap out month to month. So every month is theirs, and every other month is the other person's, and never the twain should meet. And so Starfleet has had their month, the Klingons are now having theirs, and that's where Lon's message is coming from, and according to the message, it is dire, and it is important. So when Uhura rushes down to tell him this, because unfortunately internal comms have been reset, she ends up having to, she gives them the message that it's Kajitar 4, by the way. I didn't look at my notes. Kajitar 4 is the place, it's the Klingon Federation, they share a dilithium mining planet. What does Spock do? Calls Admiral April and says, hey man, we need to, there's this message and this and that, and he's like, didn't she go on essentially an extended time away? Like, what? She's on sabbatical, bro. Like, she's not even part of Starfleet right now, and if she's there, then we'll help her next month. And he explains how delicate the situation is, which is if they mess around, they could be causing an incident. Legit. So it's one of those situations where you're like, what are you going to do, Dan, if you do, if you don't? And of course, Spock meets with everyone and essentially says, hey, we got to figure this thing out. And they're like, for what? And he goes, because we're going to steal the Enterprise. And I'm like, here we go. Time-honored tradition of stealing the Enterprise begins right here. So yeah, so that's where they are. And so that's what they're going to have to do. And it begins with them trying to fool the censors into that they are going to be, that there's a warp core breach. And so as everyone's sort of like, oh my gosh, there's a warp core breach, what are we going to do? We have to evacuate people, this and that. In walks Carol Kane. Carol Kane plays an amazing character. Specifically, she plays Commander Pelia. Commander Pelia is a very unique species, we find out. She is a lanthanite. A lanthanite is a very long-lived species who we later find out from Spock was one that lived with humans, with them sort of observing them. Very similar to Illyrians. I guess we're just the happening species to be watching in the galaxy. I know we got Guinans, Illyrians watching us. We got the lanthanites watching us. It's like, bro, I don't know how special we must think we are. But anyways, it's interesting to say the least. So what you end up with is she walks on the bridge and she begins to walk them through their own plan. It's actually pretty brilliant. Before she finally comes up to Spock and she's like, "Do you want to try to steal the Enterprise?" and blah blah. And he's like, and she's like, "Because if you want to, you should do this, this, and this." And they're like, "Okay," and she totally helps them steal the Enterprise. Come to find out later on, she's bored. She's essentially bored, and she wants to get out and adventure, and she teaches engineering at Starfleet, but she pretty much hates life. So she's like, "Can we please just go and do anything?" And that's what they do. So they go off. And when they get there, and you see, the first thing we see when we cut to Kajitar 4 is Klingons! Yay! I loved it. I was so excited to see Klingons. Klingons near and dear to my heart. Love this, by the way. This is a really nice, I believe, bridge between classic Klingons, motion picture Klingons, versus the ones that we got in Star Trek Discovery, which, again, were a little bit, were startling, to say the least. And I'm a big fan of the concept that says that Klingons are essentially like every other species in the world. The only difference is instead of being tall, short, miniature, whatever, all these different variations on people, fat, skinny, whatever it is, have a long neck or long arms or blah, blah, blah. Klingons have varying types of Klingons. Now, there's reasons canonically why they are different, but I think ultimately landing on this is just a different flavor of Klingon, I'm down. That I can deal with. Because the one thing that I've noticed is there's always been this homogeny about Star Trek that I've understood but hasn't been really keen on, and it made sense in the past when you were doing allegories of Russia versus this or the Cold War type era and different people like that. And I feel like having different species that have different types of people it's smart. It's a smart move. Okay, so essentially, La'an, they find La'an. They tell her, "We got your message." She tells them there's a plot by a group called the Broken Circle. Roll credits, i.e. the name of this particular group that they're facing, and that the whole point of them is that they want to restart the war. So what happens? Former Klingon officers, former Federation officers have come together, very much like Star Trek 6, which, by the way, did anybody else catch those musical notes that sounded very Star Trek 6? And I liked it. I think it's a wonderful note anytime they can sort of take musical cues from the past, especially when it's things we are familiar with. And so having this very rough peace treaty-esque scenario, very Kittimer-esque scenario, it really worked for me. So now Mbenga and Chapel realize they can infiltrate because they want to go see if they can get some information. There's a shortage of medical people. Come to find out, the young girl who La'an was taken to find her parents did find her parents there on the planet, and one of them got sick. So there's a shortage. So they go to try to help. While they're helping, Klingons show up, and they say, "Hey, we're going to need you to come with us." They have a Federation ship. Now, funny enough, it looks like an old predecessor to the Cerritos. It's this dual nacelle saucer section bit, but it's not. I never was like, what about the Reliant? They're back further. So, anyways, it looks sort of like a gutted Strange New Worlds version of a Cerritos or a Cali class starship, which I think hopefully plays into some point in the rest of the season. I'm looking at you, Lower Decks crossover. And they realize immediately the plan is they're going to do something with that ship. It's going to take it out. They're going to attack Klingons, start the war. When they're taken, and Mbenga's there, they're helping. They help put some people back to patch people up, and they're like, we need to send an emergency signal. So they find out that the best bet they're going to have is to use the transponder. Take the transponder, it's on deck 13, and what they do is they have this green fluid. I'm thinking it's this. It's funny. One of my good buddies over on Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, rather, over there, and at Buffer Time, the podcast that I will eventually one day return to. I promise. It's an excellent show, by the way. They have a really good panel. You guys need to watch them. It's great. It's over at Best of Trek, Worst of Trek channel. Give it a listen. And he said, he goes, I don't know if I like the super soldier serum. And it really does feel super soldier serum-y. But it's green, which I want to lean toward it might be some extracted derivative of, say, Spock's blood. Why do I say that? It does make them stronger, and they can fight through everything. Vulcans are genetically stronger. Klingons are built tougher, which makes them come across stronger. They have redundant systems top to bottom, which there's a callback to that, which is awesome. Nothing like that. I love that. Love that continuity. It's so wonderful. And so, this whole idea that they inject themselves feels very, I don't want to say MacGuffin. MacGuffin's something you look for, but it's very much sure, okay. It's kind of hand wavy and like, we got to do something. Well, now we're super strong. And because, I mean, Chapel's whooping up on Klingons. Like, whooping up on Klingons. And Mbenga, apparently in the last Klingon human war, it was rough, and you can tell he's working out some ghosts, and he's hardcore, to the point that, like, at one point he's walking down this gauntlet of Klingons because they're holding her. They have captured what's her face, Chapel, and he just beats them mercilessly. It's unreal. And they eventually get themselves locked in a little area where there's EV suits and things and whatnot, and because they feel the ship is starting to take off. Back up at the Enterprise, a D7 Klingon ship. Our first look at one here in the universe. It's gorgeous. Oh my god! There's this dope scene where where it's about to fire. I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is really cool. And I've never seen it. I don't know if they've done it anywhere else. The disruptor sides, no, the disruptor's the thing at the front, but on the sides, the regular blaster, whatever, phaser blasters, whatever you want to call them on a Klingon ship, it cocks like a giant gun. So it's like, and I'm like, I don't care. It's in space. It's dope. Okay, I thought it looked cool as can be. So very cool to see the Klingon ships functionally. And see, that's the thing about the models back in the day when they used to do them. They were gorgeous and they were wonderful and very tactile. But you could never get that fine detail to those functioning parts because it's just no way. There was no way to engineer that in a realistic way that made sense. So now with CG, you totally can. And it looks amazing. So that's when they see the ship, and the transponder from the other ship comes out, and the Enterprise reads it, and of course Uhura is awesome, and it's Morse 2 embedded in a code, and it says, Enterprise, destroy this ship. Oh yeah. And sure enough, Spock's like, he knows. He's like, are there anyone this and that? And you can tell, oh man, he's doing, Ethan Peck, bro, he's doing such a great job being pain Spock, trying to keep it all together, and it looks unreal. I believe before the season's out, Spock's going to end up being broken, and they're going to have to fix him. We're probably going to get where he has to, in order to stop whatever's happening with him, my prediction is he's going to absolutely have to purge his emotions as much as possible, put all his locks back in place, and get to a much stronger, sterner place. He's going to get closer to TOS Spock. So meanwhile, Mbenga and Chapel have decided, well, the only way we can do this, they have one EV suit between them. Mbenga can sort of point the jet. They can take a breath as much as possible before they go, and then eventually they're going to freeze. But the EV suit will immediately begin sending out a signal as soon as it gets clear of the ship, and so they'll be able to pick it up. They're hoping it'll take them. He's like, don't worry, we'll have this long to live, but we'll be unconscious way before that. And so, sure enough, Spock gives the order, and they blow the thing up. And immediately the EV thing, they transport them, and you get this really interesting in-transporter view. So it's rocky, and they've just been in space, and so it's all very tumultuous and chaos, and then eventually she sees, I say she, because Chapel sort of seeing, and you see Spock all over her, and he's doing CPR and whatnot, and she eventually wakes up, and she touches his face, and she goes, hey, why so rough? It was really, it's a very touching moment, and you can definitely see the trouble that they're headed toward with them. I kind of like the fact that they've retconned and reevaluated this relationship, because in the original series, you got Majel Barrett playing this role where she's constantly sort of seeking this unrequited love from Spock. And funny enough, though they're playing with the relationship right now, I think you're going to get to that place. We're going to get to that place where it is unrequited, because he's going to, I'm telling you, in order to be right, he's going to end up having to purge himself of a lot of his emotions and go there. It's the only logical place for it to go. Anyway, so yeah, it's they make it back. They save the Federation from war. Spock ends up enjoying a good some blood wine with Klingons. It's awesome. Carol Kane shows back up, and she's like, "Yeah, man, I think I'm gonna stick around on this ship if they'll let me, because I'm bored over there. The problem with living forever is that it's boring stuff." And I was like, "Okay, right on." She has the same disruptor feel, meaning she's disrupting the environment as Hemmer had, but it's in a different way. And I love the fact that they've given her a character. My good friend Dal over on, again, Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, because we all kind of watch it together early. So we're all on Discord, just kind of like, oh my goodness, what's going on, this and that. He said that he's like, yeah, no, I love that Carol Kane gets an opportunity to really sort of chew on a character they can chew on. I loved it. It was good. It was a good. Dal, you're on it, man. And so, yeah, there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So, what is the know-it-all index for this episode? We're going to go ahead and give it a solid 8. I love it. Welcome to Strange New Worlds Season 2. So comment below, let me know what you thought. I would absolutely love to talk more with you guys about this. Looking to set up some new things. Hopefully we are narrowing down a new space and going to get into a place of our very own. The reason I don't have the green screen today is because Grandpa Know-It-All came back from the hospital. He's doing great, but the room I was using is his room, so he needs a place to rest and sleep, but that's where he's at right now. And so, but hey, you know what? The show goes on, and I'm looking super forward to doing more of this. And as soon as we have more space and availability, Mrs. Know-It-All is going to go ahead and join us on this. Oh, and you can expect when the crossover happens, oh yeah, it's going to be a family affair. The Know-It-Alls will be here in force, because I know Baby Know-It-All has some things to say about the Lower Decks crossover, and Mrs. Know-It-All absolutely will as well. So, thanks a lot, you guys. Stick around. I can't wait to talk more next week. Never forget, everyone loves a Know-It-All.